What's up, y'all? Welcome back to BTB podcast, the latest podcast there is right now. So how y'all doing today? I am doing pretty good. I just got off of work. Well, I just got gas. I'm about to go on a drive because this podcast today is dedicated to my grandfather. This podcast is about grieving my grandfather, and one of the things that me and my grandfather used to do together is take drives. So I was trying to figure out ways to be able to really sit down and talk to you guys and still kind of have my grandfather connected to it. So one of those ways is, like I said, driving. Something I do now just to clear my head. It's how I feel like I can still stay connected to my grandfather is by driving. So what I'm gonna do is just drive. We never had a destination. We would just drive and listen to music and just go. But instead of me listening to music, you're just gonna hear me talk. I talk about my grandfather, how I dealt with grief, ways that it could also help you if you're dealing with grief, and just really go from there. So my grandfather was literally my best friend. If you did not watch the video before this one, then you will know. First of all, you need to go stop and watch that video. But if you already watched it, then you will already know that my grandfather was that one person that I called no matter the time of the day. 2 o'clock in the morning, my grandfather would answer the phone. It did not matter on what time he answered, what time it was. My grandfather was answering at a click of a dime to be there for me, to show up for me, because it was kind of like he felt like he had to, take that role as my father, because my biological father was not in the picture. He was there, but he didn't show up. So my grandfather took on that role for all of us. So my grandfather passed away in 2008. One of the hardest years for me. It's going to be a little bumpy because Augusta got bad roads. But anyway, my grandfather passed away. I was the only grandchild to see my grandfather, to be around him before he passed. I stayed in Augusta from New Jersey. I came here because we will come here every single summer. So I came here by myself because my brothers didn't want to go, and I was really, really bad. So my mother just couldn't take it anymore, and she needed help. So my mom sent me to my grandparents' house so that they could help. So I stayed with them for the whole entire summer, and I was able to spend that last summer with him. We went to work. I went to work with him. I went out to eat with him. We just had fun. We played games. Me, my grandma, and my grandfather would play games together. And it was just a great time. I was able to just enjoy him and just feel that love. And I don't know if that's something that I needed before he passed away, but it was something that I cherished every single day. But it was also something that hurt the most because I did see him last. And with that, it took a lot from me because I felt like I was the reason. I could have helped him. I could have, allowed him to stay alive, or helped him stay alive. I could have did anything. I could have called the police. Anything, because he died alone. So I felt like it was my duty to help. Well, that took a toll because that started to mess up my brain. I could not go into the bathroom, any bathroom. I could not go in any bathroom by myself because my grandfather unfortunately passed away in the bathroom. So I could not go to any bathroom by myself. I couldn't take a shower by myself. If I took a shower by myself, it was the door was open or whatever, but other than that, I just did not take a shower by myself. My grandfather was one of the strongest men I've ever met in my entire life. This man was hardworking, dedicated. He did everything that you can think, anything that you can think of, everything that you can think of, my grandfather did it. One thing that I enjoyed talking to my grandfather about was that he would study, like he studied every religion out there, which is why I learned personally that I did not just want to base my life off of just Christianity, because that's what I grew up in. I wanted to learn all the religions so that I can figure out what's meant for me, like what connects with me and everything. And I realized I'm just spiritual, because there's a lot of things that I don't agree with, but I'm also glad that I was able to understand and do research on the religions. My grandfather saved me numerous of times. When it came down to moments where I just felt alone, I felt lost, I felt like I didn't have anybody there, my grandfather showed up. And that was really, really hard to let go of. I wanted to call my grandfather every single night that something happened to me, because that was the person that answered for me. And to find out that I could not call him anymore was very devastating. I started to become really, really bad. I was already bad. I really wasn't listening, but I became even worse. And throughout the years, I just didn't care. When it came down to school, I didn't care about nothing, because the one person who acknowledged my achievements was my grandfather. My grandfather was not in the same facility as me. Like I said, he lived in Georgia and I lived in New Jersey. But he was the only one who praised the things that I did. So when it came down to the good grades I made, or when it came down to achievements, anything, my grandfather answered. Like, my grandfather was just so excited for me. Like, he was happy. And just to know that my support was gone was really hard. I still had support, but it's nothing like the support from your grandfather. Especially with a girl growing up not having a father, the closest thing to my father was my grandfather. So for me, it helped. Growing up, didn't care, none of that. And it came down to the point to where I got bullied badly. And instead of like calling my grandfather and telling him like what happened and him giving the spiel, I just dropped out of high school. I dropped out of high school with no care in the world. I felt like nobody was advocating for me, so why should I be in school to deal with this stuff? So I dropped out. Stopped going to school. I was skipping school all the time. So it was hard. So then it became even more hard when I decided to start drinking, because the pain would not go away. I could not fathom the fact that my grandfather was gone. So I started drinking. I started smoking. I was smoking every day. I would wake up, smoke weed. I would eat. Anytime I ate, smoke weed, or I would drink. I became an alcoholic. Smoking, I became immune to it. The only thing that I could not do, and still to this day I can't do, is drive. But I became immune to it. It became my everyday thing. I could not eat without smoking. And for me, I felt like I was on a trip. So I just felt kind of closer to my grandfather in that way. I know that's crazy to say, but it is what it is. I felt like it was the only way that I was going to numb the pain that I was going through. So I did nothing but drugs. I started to pop pills. some of my friends that I was dealing with, the wrong type of friends, who actually became the friends who jumped me. They were popping pills and everything. So I did the same thing because they were doing it, I did it. And they were giving me a love that I never expected. So I was like, fuck it, let's do it. So I wind up taking these drugs and being happy. I was in a happy state. Because y'all know, drugs take over your life. So because drugs taking over your life, it's going to make you feel different. It's going to make you feel happy or calm, smooth, cool, collected, whatever. And that's just how I was during that moment. So I realized the drugs was not working. They weren't helping. They had an expiration date. As you know, weed lasts a certain amount of time. Once that weed is gone, once that high is gone, what you gonna do next? Smoke weed, smoke more weed. Or you gonna start drinking. So that's what I did. I kept drinking and drinking and drinking. Or smoking. But nobody realized. Nobody knew the pain that I was going through. So it starts to become even worse. And I just gave up. I gave up on life. I gave up on everything. I didn't know what truly to do anymore. So then I decided to get a therapist. Well, I got a therapist once I like, my mom just couldn't deal with me anymore, so she sent me to my father. And I lived in North Carolina. I wound up getting a therapist in North Carolina, and my father didn't play with no bad grades. He decided he wanted to be a father. So when I lived with him, he didn't play that. So I had to get a tutor and everything. My tutor became like my therapist, but then we also got a therapist. She was the best person. Like, she was this black lady. She wasn't older than, like, she wasn't too much older than me. Like, she was older than me, of course, but like, I was in my teens and she was in her late 20s. That's what I mean, like, not too much older than me. And she helped me realize that I did not grieve. I was not, like, I was acting the way I was acting because of the things that I was dealing with, the abandonment and all of that. But I felt even more abandoned when my grandfather passed away. So it became really hard for me. And I didn't grieve him correctly. I didn't know I didn't grieve him correctly until, like, I didn't physically know I didn't grieve him correctly until 2 years ago. I heard her when she said I wasn't grieving her right and I need to figure out ways to grieve. But I felt like I was doing everything in my power that I was grieving. There was nothing that anybody could tell me that I did not do because I felt like I was doing it. And then on top of that, I didn't feel like I needed to hear any of it. It was weird because he was the only person that I did not get a tattoo of. My grandfather passed away before my great-grandmother, but my great-grandmother was my first tattoo. Then my next-door neighbor, a man that I considered a father figure to me and my brothers, he passed away. I got a tattoo of him. The one person I can never get a tattoo of, even though I've drawn multiple tattoos of my grandfather, for my grandfather, I just can't get him on my body. It's just crazy. Well, I didn't realize that I didn't grieve him until 2 years ago, like I said. And with that, it came a lot. My therapist at the time told me, she said, well, have you grieved him? Have you said goodbye? And I said, yeah, I said goodbye to him in 2008. She asked me, was it an open casket? I said no. My grandmother didn't want us to see him. Even though we could have, she didn't want to see him. She didn't want any of her grandchildren to see him the way that he was. She wanted us to see him or remember him how he was before he passed away. Like our last memory with him. That's what she wanted us to remember. She did not want us to see him in a casket. So I saw him as the last person I remember. So she was like, okay, but have you actually gone to his gravesite and said goodbye? Well, before she said that, she asked me, she said, when you go to his graveyard, what do you say? Like, how do you talk to him? Like, what do you do? Then I say, I go to him and I be like, hey, yo, granddad, like, what's good? Like, today, this is how my day went, blah, 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 blah. She said, that's the problem. I said, what's the problem? She said, you're still talking to him as if he's still here. I said, I mean, his graveyard's here, so I'm talking to my grandfather as if I would talk to him if he was in front of me. She said, that's your problem. That's something that you need to stop doing. You need to stop talking to him as if he is still in front of your face, as if he's still alive. Even though his name and everything is still there, like his stone is there, but he's not physically there. I didn't understand what a word that woman was saying, so she had to break it down even more. She said, your body is not allowing yourself to grieve your grandfather's death because of the fact that you're still feeding your brain in a way that your grandfather is still here. So you're not really allowing him to go. That took a lot. Then she told me, she said, this is something I need you to do for me. I said, okay, what? She said, I have homework and I need you to go to your grandfather's graveyard and I need you to tell him goodbye. And I said, nah, you're tripping. Like, I've done that already. So she told me to go home and think about it. And our next visit, which was in 2 days, because I saw her 3 times out the week, which was in 2 days, she told me to come back and she told me we're going to have the conversation all over again. So after that conversation, I went home to my grandmother. Well, I drove to my grandma's house and I told her everything that my therapist told me. And she said that that's a great idea. She said, you know, one thing that she really, you know, thinks that she did incorrectly was she didn't allow us to say goodbye. She said that she thinks that, at least for me, that she should have given me the opportunity to say goodbye to him. If she would have allowed me to say goodbye to him, everything would have been a lot better. But I don't know. So I was like, okay. So she told me that I needed to go there and say goodbye. She said that's something that she had to do as well. Her therapist told her she had to take down every picture of my grandfather and her. And she had to stop talking to him, because when she came in the house, she would literally say, Jimmy, that's my grandfather's name. That's also my car's name, if you know me. And I had no idea. So when she told me that, I was like, okay, cool, I'll do that. So I decided to finally go to my grandfather's graveyard and I said goodbye. When I tell you that was the time that I actually was grieving, that's the time that my grieving actually started. It was so hard for me. Like, it was completely hard. I saw my grandfather every single day after that. It was my way of grieving. I don't know why, but I just continued to go see him. Then that started to take a toll over me and my mental, because it was like I'm talking to my grandfather and I'm saying I've already said goodbye to him, and now I have to physically see him gone. So my grandfather wound up coming into my dream, and in my dream he told me that it's okay, he's proud of me, and he handed me a hand and said, take care of them. I don't know who hand that was, but that's what he did. I can't remember the hand, but I just remember him saying that. and him telling me like it's okay, and that he's always here and that he loves me. That took me out. I contacted my grandma right away and I was like, Grandma, what does this mean? Like, I need help. And she was like, this is your grieving. The same thing happened to her. So I started seeing my grandfather all the time. Like, before I got that dream, I started seeing him everywhere. Men, I saw him, like, it was just like, if he was a resemblance of him, I saw him. And that was even harder because I'm like, nah, that's crazy. Like, that's creepy. Like, how do you look exactly identical as my grandfather? And it was like the stages of my grandfather. Like, when my grandfather passed away, my grandfather was not on the small side. He was on the bigger side. But as when he was younger, he was really small. So I saw him at those stages through other people. It was the craziest thing that I've ever gone through, but it was real. So that was me grieving him and allowing my body to say goodbye. So as time went by, me and my grandfather, you know what I mean? It started working out. I started praying to him and God. And when things would happen, I knew it was God and my grandfather. Like, I knew it was my grandfather. Because certain things would happen that my grandfather would have done, if that makes any sense. So it allowed me to grieve him a lot more. I wrote him a poem. You'll see the poem at the end of the vlog. But I read him a poem. I wrote a poem for him. And I called it my nightmare. It was one of the hardest things that I had to deal with. But it was one of the strongest things that I had to deal with at the same time. During that journey, I just decided to do everything I could to help myself just really fully get to me. Wrote him a poem, wrote him a story, a letter. I wrote a song. I drew, and I drew mad tattoos. That's how I knew that I was ready to let him go. I started the tattoos, but I did not finish them. And I just finished the tattoo that I want to put on my leg of him. I just finished that recently, and I'm getting that tattooed by the end of the year. I may get it on his anniversary. But yeah. So my grieving has been a journey. It has been a big, big journey. It's been a roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster at that. It was a lot of different things that I had to go through. A lot of moments that I had to just allow myself to push through, because I didn't know that I didn't grieve him. My dude died 17 years ago this year. It's crazy. 17 years ago he passed away, and I just fully grieved him 2 years ago, which was a year and a half ago, which was damn near 16 years, 15 years, year and a half, so 15 years, let me say 15 and a half years. So it was tough. It was definitely tough. Now I don't drink as much. I'm only a social drinker. I try not to dwell on things when it comes down to my grandfather as much as possible. I try to tell myself, what will my grandfather do? That's my biggest thing now. what would my grandfather do or what would my grandfather say. I created a clothing line back in 2008 that is dedicated to my grandfather. It's called Conquer All, because that's one thing that I tell myself when I was dealing with things with him, the grief when he passed away. I will conquer it, because my grandfather would just always tell me that I'm a McCormick. So I didn't really want to have a clothing line that stated I'm a McCormick, because how are people going to wear that? So I would just say I will conquer all. We'll conquer all. And I just created that brand. And that became the love of my life. I think fully that when it comes down to you and dealing with your mental, dealing with your grief, figure out a way to deal with it without having to go to drugs. If you don't have support within your family, try dealing with it outside of them. Try going to other people. Everybody has support, but just figure out who is the right support and who's the wrong support. Because you definitely want to make sure that you have the support that will allow you to just be. And I had the support outside of family. I went to a therapist. So just do that. I'm trying to tell you, it is a miracle. It'll help. They'll tell you things that you don't want to hear. And when you go through it, just allow yourself to understand that they're not here to hurt you. They're not here to harm you. They're here to help you. They're here to help you get through the things, your hardest moments, which is the grief. And it's okay to say goodbye. Please say goodbye. Because if you don't say goodbye, you're holding on to him and you're not allowing him to continue to keep going. So say goodbye. Allow yourself to heal correctly by just saying goodbye. Or if it works better for you, say see you later. If that's easier, say see you later. I'll see you later. Until next time, whatever the case may be. But just try that. My journey, my story is not always the same as other people's story. And that's okay. How I handled it is not going to be the same exact way that you handle it. Or the next person handles it. Or the next person handles it. But I still handled it the best way I can. And allowed me to love myself to a whole different extent. Because when my grandfather left, he took my support. He took everything. So I had to develop a lot by myself. So just think about that. And allow yourself to just push. Just push. And when people leave, it's okay. Understand that it's okay. Understand that maybe that's just their way. Maybe that's just God's way or your guardian's way, the person that you're grieving. Maybe that's their way of telling you this person is not meant to be in your life. And that's all right. Just understand that and keep it moving. Try to fight if that's what you want to do. But if they're not willing to fight for you, then keep it going. Just love yourself. Give yourself the love that that person gave you. And that's all that matters. I love you guys. I hope you guys stay tuned to the poem, which is going to be attached to this. And we're on the road. We're on the road to bigger and better things. I know it's supposed to drop on Friday, but again, I'm dropping today. I will not be dropping anything next week just because it's Masters Week in Augusta. Augusta. So me working at the airport for Enterprise, we are completely, I work 12 to 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. So I'm going to be exhausted, super exhausted. So I just rather not talk about anything and just stay focused on this, and I'll catch up the following week. But this will be dropped tonight. I'll drop it as soon as I get home, and you guys see everything. I hope that you guys are liking my journey. I am super grateful for the ones that are staying tuned every single video, and who is watching it and liking it. I appreciate you with all my heart. And the ones who aren't, that's still great. Somebody will hear my story. Really, this is just me to be able to get it out. It's kind of like my diary, honestly. When I feel low, I talk about things that I'm dealing with. So hopefully you guys are getting something out of it, and you get to understand me a little bit more. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Stay blessed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Turn on your post notifications.